Oh, fading in. Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Hey, T for Texas, thanks for joining us. Hey guys, hey tonight, kind of hopefully our Mel and Red check in. But right now we're going to talk about CQB or actually CQC and what all it means. Right now we got Carbon Q up there.
Everybody.
Um, she's going to join us and then go in. And that's it. Carbon Q, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
You already know who I am. Hi, everybody. Hi, Java. Hi, T for Texas. How you doing? Hi, everybody in the chat. Carbon Q. You know.
Then just I don't know if you want to reveal a little bit, maybe a little bit about your background and everything else.
I worked for the Department of Corrections. I did 20 years. Retired as a captain. I worked in many areas in there, from intake, recreation, unit housing areas, CPSU, MSEG, Maui, which is mental health segregation, uh, all adult male facilities, all
Yeah.
high class facilities. And yeah, I worked a couple other places, special search, quite a few different areas at my time at corrections. And yeah, so that's
All
basically
right,
it.
nice. Yeah, so tonight was going to talk a little bit about CQB. I'm sorry, I keep saying it. I even do it. CQC,
Mhm.
and kind of what all that means to you, and how you look at CQC, and then some of the tools and tricks and everything else that's related to CQC. Hey, SD Marine, how you doing? So, yeah,
So you want me to explain that now? At the you want me to explain it now? What
but
am
yeah,
I?
I mean, just what are your what's your
Yes, see.
take on CQC and everything else? What does it mean to you coming from a law enforcement and then also a civilian side?
Okay. Well, as far as law enforcement, and you have cell extractions, you have certain areas, recreation, especially in admin seg. You have recreation, which has outdoor compartments for them, cages that they have to go into, and that's where they do their rec sessions at. So sometimes you'll have somebody who becomes combative, or they obtained a piece of equipment and they don't want to give it up, or they don't want to go back into the housing area. You may have someone who's attempting suicide, and they kind of barricade the door. They'll put the mattress up there so you can't see them to observe them. So you might have to enter into the cell. So a lot of our stuff is, sometimes we have to go in, and sometimes force is used. It depends on the situation, and a whole lot of other stuff happens before you even enter in there. But it's such a small confined space, the cell areas, the cages, intake. You have oncoming onboarding happening, so you have several different pens that will a lot of things can go on inside there, and it's only about so big, and it holds so many people, and you may have to enter into there. So learning how to control that situation or that individual in a small confined space is something that you do a lot inside there.
All right.
Hmm.
All right, excellent. And then of course, you guys are going less than lethal.
Right.
Um, to do that, and that's just like one of those things. Kind of brings us up to like really when we start talking about like the origins of CQC and everything else. And a lot of times we'll interchange those words CQB and CQC, but kind of define CQC as mutual combat in close quarters. You're using hands, knives, feet, teeth, whatever you can really get your hands on and everything else. It's not
Mhm.
guns and all the good stuff. Hey, SD Marine, send you the link now. You want it on your cell phone or on your Instagram?
Well, with us, we have a few items that we do use. I'll say equipment that we do use. However, um, even though we're using force, we have to use the least amount of force possible, and the force has to match what is going on the other end of the spectrum, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we have an EIS shield. which delivers an electronic shock to the individual. But if they have water on the floor, you can't utilize that. You have contraindicators where you have to make sure you know those for that particular individual that you're going into before you can utilize those. So sometimes it does come to hints to, what is it, hand to hand combat
Man,
versus
combat. All right.
using it versus using something that would probably end the situation very quickly and fast, and then you can get them out. Uh, and a lot of them know that, it's only about so many times that you could do it without them picking up how you move and how your unit moves when you do decide to go inside there. It's unpredictable. So you have to think quick on your feet. You have to be able to make decisions for your team and yourself, and also the individual that you're going to extract or take down to the clinic or into the intake. Sometimes you have to get them off of a bus, which is called a hot bus. That's a whole
Hot
nother,
bus.
yeah, that's a whole nother CQC, small confined space, that
Uh,
you got to get it on inside there as well. But you learn to adapt and make it work.
yeah. So just going back to like what you said and everything else about like your TTPs, the way you guys operate and do things. And if we take a look at that banner, you start talking about like the differences between military and law enforcement CQC. In the military, their CQC is primarily revolves around how can I delete this individual without a ranged weapon? You know, very rarely is it about putting cuffs on someone. Now, there are some aspects of it when you start looking at like some of your miso operations and crowd control and riot control, and hopefully we'll get into talk to that a little bit later on tonight. But
Mhm.
primarily, they're going in to do great bodily harm to individuals, not extract them out to the cell and take them down to the infirmary and get checked up.
Right.
So again, I know in law enforcement, um, you start talking about confined spaces, not only cells, but in dining facilities, chow halls,
Mhm.
rec yards, and stuff like that. What are some of the other things you guys can use as far as less than lethal? Um, the less than lethal, non-lethal stuff on the force continuum. I know you guys use tear gas.
Yeah.
Um,
We also
uh,
have a grenade that does chemical agents as well, but that's more so for the yard
yeah,
in an open space. The difference between the gel spray and then the regular OC, we call it OCCS spray. You have your batons, you have your riot gear that you normally would wear, but that's if the team is sent out. Sometimes it's just you and your can of chemical agents, which you can only deploy 3 times per
you can
person.
only deploy chemical agents 3 times. Like, but
Right.
like, how does that work? I'm confused.
To me, it never made sense because sometimes you're locked down with 50, it's one of you to 50 detainees, right?
Mhm.
And if your can of OC only can hold 3 sprays per person, and it only holds about, you can only use it like 3 times. And just to say, if you miss the first time,
Uh,
like, who's keeping count whilst you're fighting? So at
yeah.
the end of the day, it works, but sometimes it's you're gonna have to go to hands to hand combat with them.
That's kind of limited too, and everything else. Hey, SD Marine, thanks for joining us.
Good
Um,
evening.
you go ahead and introduce yourself. You know,
Mhm.
that'd be great.
Uh, SD Marine 89 or 89. Um, 8 years in the Marine Corps, 23 years, LEO.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So, Carbon Q was just talking about everyone's favorite thing is that they like to see is cell extractions and some of the limitations on it. And we just started off by just the differences between CQC. I guess we're kind of shaping CQC as um, just hand to hand combat fighting. Hands, arms, sticks, teeth, whatever you got, pretty much to win the fight. It's like the differences between military, law enforcement, civilian applications. Because I know, you know, um, military has designated programs. They're pretty much standard as far as Leo and law enforcement. I don't know what type of programs do you guys have?
On the LE side, all depends. We have 2 units. The CERT team, which is Civil Emergency Action Team, and then the Advanced Civil Emergency Action Team. So they have their training and doctrine. And again, at a state level, right? We don't. They're not called upon, or we're not called upon a whole lot to do those type of, I guess, cell extractions, warrants. I mean, I did 2 years, or I worked 2 years in a prison system, so I'm aware of what carbon is saying as far as cell extractions and/or going in and I guess I don't want to say taking control of the situation, but de-escalate the situation.
All right, all right. See, and I think like right there, that's like one of the main differences between when the military does CQC, because they kind of ran out of options with kinetic options. You know, like their guns down, it's jammed, they can't get to it or whatever, and they just have to go hands on. And then I know we had talked about like some of your patrol officers out there on the streets and how those situations are really, really blurry between going kinetic and hands on. You know, you go from a general interaction to now you're in the fight of your life for your gun. You know, so it's yeah, I guess it's a little different. You
I
know?
think based off our conversation that we had yesterday, and you hit it. I'm trying to think, what term did you use? Because you gave me some stuff I had to do my homework on to even prepare for the night, and then you sent all the rest of the information through the link.
Yeah.
Mutual combat is the term that you used.
Yeah.
So when in a CQC situation with where you're discussing a road guy and I can only speak for my agency and or what we did and how we operated. It's all about personal space or space. Now, and we all are familiar with what the 6-foot reactionary gap, if you're all familiar with that. That space has to be maintained.
Yeah.
At a certain point in time, either we are going to LE is going to break that space, and or the violator or subject is going to break that space. And then at that point in time, in the terminology of CQC, would that definition apply? And I would say yes.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and that's kind of interesting when you talk about that. The military, you know, they'll call it closing the distance, and your martial arts, they'll call it closing the distance, right? So, you know, your options as a Leo, you know, more so on the street, or even if you're working in a detention facility and everything else, when someone closes that gap or that distance, they get within arm's distance, right? Your tools you can use on your fourth continuum, like how, you know, do you just go kinetic right away? You go for your gun, or are you trying to pull out a baton and hit them with it, or does it just depend?
It depends. And Carbon being in that world, and you also, Jovi. So that violator or suspect, or I shouldn't call him suspect, that violator and or person is going to dictate how or what I use as far as defensive counterstrikes and or empty hand control. Now, do I have to follow those steps in those different levels? And the answer is no. If, again, I'm looking at subject, size, gender, right? So if someone is taller than I am, may outweigh me, in the back of my mind, I know hands-on is not going to apply.
Yeah.
So I may have to go to an intermediate weapon at that point in time, right? So it's a constant, constant evaluation. I'm looking at the situation. I'm looking at how this thing is going to play out, and that was just me when I worked the road.
Hey, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna hit you with a throwback. So
Okay.
you're monitoring that OODA loop.
I am definitely monitoring.
Observe, orientate, decide,
Right.
act. Right. So
Right.
that's that continuous loop. Yeah, and I guess it's kind of different because for the military, it's just like you already know what you're going to do. Everyone's trying to kill you. It doesn't matter size, gender, whatever, because everything now is asymmetrical. Before you were only concerned with military age males. Now you have females wearing S vest, you have kids wearing S vest. So everything from there is just immediately hands on with the maximum amount of force that you can deal with. Like you said, at the bottom, when a compliant subject suddenly becomes non-compliant, it's carbon cube, hey, get back to your cell. They just stop and turn around, don't want to go. Or I'm cooperating all the way up until the point you ask me to step out the vehicle. you know um so
Yeah, I think, and I'm not for sure. And this, I mean, I'm glad you got Carbon online, because it's again, as I was doing my homework and what you gave me.
I didn't get no homework.
And then no, I gave myself the homework, and I watched the live, and you were the topic was the same.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm back.
CQB and CQC.
Yeah, I think he's frozen.
Uh-oh. So, where you guys are talking about the OODA loop, sometimes where I'm working is so unpredictable.
Hmm.
Is he back? So I don't want to hold on. Yep, finish saying. I'll say it after you said.
Yeah, you froze up on us, SD.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. No, I'm on my way to go pick up my son. So, um, and I guess Carbon, you got the floor. I'm not.
You want me to finish? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you were discussing the OODA loop, so for us, sometimes it's so unexpected you don't have time to even do that.
Yeah.
It pops off like right then and there, sometimes right in front of you, and you just have to react. And sometimes it's jumping in, separating, and then trying to realize what is going on, who are your combatants, and how do we separate this. When it's a group of individuals getting into it, and that becomes a little bit more harder, especially when it's you and it's a whole bunch of them. So now you have to wait. You got to pull your pin. You got to wait for somebody to get there. No, you could just kind of observe for the most part. So when they do get there, you can start pointing out and separating, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to explain where you have so many steps you go to before with cell extractions is what I'm talking about. Like you have to get contraindicators, you have to have an advocate come down and try to de-escalate the situation with the individual. You can have a steady housing officer or steady captain come and speak to them that has a rapport with them, right? And try to de-escalate it. And sometimes that doesn't work. So now you have to go to actual force. And they can comply all the way till you pop that slide to read them the whole, give them the whole breakdown of what's going to happen if they don't comply. And as soon as you crack that cell, it's just on. It's very unpredictable. And then in the same token, you can go talk to somebody and talk them right out of it, and then everything's fine. So it's a environment that you have to be on your toes all the time.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting because when we start talking about tactics and techniques and how you do things, and then all of a sudden you start talking about the rules that you do. And, like people ask me or they say like, hey, what's the rules of CQC? It's like, hey, all bets are off. You can get hit with a chair, a brick, a bottle, a book,
Mhm.
whatever you have at your disposal. And I think that's one of those differences between your military aspect going into law enforcement and
Mhm.
then your civilian side, because
Right.
we looked at some videos and everything else of people
Mhm.
in riot situations and bar fights and altercations, and it went everything's hands, feet, car doors, chairs.
Right.
Um, you know, some cops have batons and riot shields, and there's no set or time or place where you'll be in that situation, um, that you'll have to use some of those things.
Right.
So
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong with your topic or with the topic. Um, and like I said, I watched the live last week. So in your panel of guests, then as I listened to it, uh, we in this space or where we are we looking for an absolute as far as the definition of CQB and CQC and where it falls, or how does it fall into place? Does that make sense?
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and hopefully, last week we put it out, and again I'll put it out tonight, that there is no right or wrong answer. There's no
Mhm.
doctrinally correct answer, because we're just three individuals up here and just trying to come to an agreement as to what it is and define it, because it's different to everyone.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
if
Right,
that makes
right.
sense.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and I would say, again, my definition of it, you know, within close proximity, a closed space, arm's distance, right? Because that's the type of weapon systems I'm using. I'm
Mhm.
using my feet, my legs. I'm probably going to be grappling, taking it to the ground, you
Right.
know. So just stuff like that. So, once we can define it, we can better talk about it and say what it is. Because, we had the conversation yesterday, SD, about how sometimes, we define CQC as arms, knives, feet, all that other stuff that's not going to immediately kill you, no guns, right? And a
Right.
CQB situation can instantaneously flow and turn into a CQB situation, because now we're down here tussling and wrestling, and you're trying to choke me out, but I'm going for my gun. So where does that line, is
Yeah.
there a line? Are they mutually exclusive? Can they intersect depending upon what you're doing? And that's just a question. So it'll be a pretty cool
Yeah.
topic to get some people upset and pissed off with.
For me, it's always going to be hand in
Well,
hand
and
combat.
and
I'm sorry.
no, you're
It's always
fine. You're fine. You're fine.
it's right from where I worked. It's always hand to hand. It's never we're going to go straight to a firearm. We don't carry firearms. We just carry a small can of OC, and that's it. Usually, when you're escorting, you have majority of your compliant subjects suddenly become non-compliant
Yep.
during your escorting phase. So a lot of times when I was escorting, you really have to have a good grip on those cuffs, and you have to learn how to manipulate your cuffs, especially when they're on an individual who might be bigger than you, and use it to your advantage. Because if they pull away, if I'm escorting, I have one particular person in thought he was like 6'2", he's 300 pounds, and I have to escort him from one end of the building to the other end. And if he decides to pull away, like he's taking me with him, but if I manipulate that cuff the correct way, once I'm escorting him, he'll drop
Yeah.
because it hits a certain area that allows them to do so, or it'll make him think about it until I can get somebody else to come and assist me. With cell extractions, it's they'll fight you all the way until you get them on the floor and your six-man team is on top of them. And, that to me is always the scariest one, because there's a lot of pressure on top of somebody because it's such a small, confined space. However, it has to do, you have to secure them before you can pull them out. But if you schedule, not schedule, if you set up your team right correctly with the right people, you can get it done very quickly and you practice it. But manipulation of your equipment done correctly and learning how to get them on quickly and escort them out is probably your best bet. You have to really practice that with them as much as you can.
So I would say with that and everything else, you brought up a good topic, because a lot of times in the Leo side, you're not looking to go, um, to deadly force on that force continuum. And you said, you're doing cell extractions, or even if you're doing, if you're on the ground, you're grappling and you go into where you're outnumbered, say, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and you got to control your primary suspect. And you roll them over on their stomach, and now you put a knee to the neck, or you put a knee to the back, and you're pressing that diaphragm. And we had talked about, positional asphyxiation. Someone just chokes out, die just because of, the compression and everything else like that. I mean, that's a good
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, and let me back up. And I will say, and my apologies, because I made it sound like uh,
Yep.
the troopers, state high patrol, we never did anything that was inside of a house, and that's not true. Um, as I think back, a couple of times we had to go in a house to get that person, and now we're in their space. So go to both of you your points. It and I think about it was like a CQC thing, because it was hands and hadn't gone to OC yet, but it was just joint locks, defensive counter strikes, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I
we're
got a
good.
question for you, because, like, now that kind of said that CQC is more, with the hands, not using guns and everything else, all the less than lethal stuff. Um, what what what's your thoughts on the fact, like, your SRT, your guys that's going and kicking in, serving in high risk warrants, hell, even your U.S. Marshal SOG, team, right? They're going and kicking warrants, but their primary objective is to put someone in bracelets or to put them in cuffs and bring them out. So, like, do you really think they're more orientated towards CQC with the potential to go kinetic as in CQB, or just straight CQB? Because, again, Marshall team shows up at your door. They're trying to bring you out in bracelets so you can serve that warrant. And sometimes it goes terribly wrong and they start shooting, you know. Um, it's just like one of those things. I continually think about, because no cop goes in and be like, I'm just going to shoot this guy. It's just like, I'm going to do a wrist lock, a joint lock. I'm going to take him down, try and put him in cuffs, right? So got to have some type of training
Yeah,
program, fighting, whatever.
yeah. Now when
Oh,
the teams go in, I mean, and we all do. Like everybody has a role. You have a brief, um, and as soon as you go in, you should, if the intel is correct, you know how many possibly people you're dealing with in there. So at that point in time, it is a CQC dynamic with the understanding that it can turn or go the other way or
right.
down another path, depending on how fluid and dynamic it gets.
All
You're
right.
working into a house that's unknown. I mean, you're going there for one person, but you don't know who else is in there. So it can be either or.
Yeah.
You just gotta kind of feel it out when you're going to it. A lot of this stuff is so unexpected, to break it down to say it's just this or that would be not fair. It
Yeah,
can
no,
be.
no, no. 100. I absolutely understand that nothing is absolute. Just because you had interactions with this individual 100 other times, this might be the day that they're off their meds or they're extremely agitated or whatever.
Right.
So, and yeah, you have to go on with that overwhelming show of force.
Right.
So they're not even thinking about doing it. Reminds me of that one picture, that riot cop. Like everyone else is like 5'5", 5'7". This dude's like 6'8", and he has his baton, and he's bending it like that. It's like, yeah, I don't even want to participate no more, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it gets crazy. I don't know. I think the baton for me was more of a hindrance in cell settings because it's so narrow. You can end up hitting, one of your partners because
yeah,
you're swinging unless you're butting. You're using the butt or the tip of the baton to deliver, a
yeah,
strike. However, on in a yard situation makes more sense. On a hot bus, that's doesn't make sense. But it is also an effective tool when they tuck their hands underneath them and you're trying to pry it out, just to slide the baton in there and just peel it out so you can cuff them and get them out. Um, I just think there's more effective things that we can use in housing areas versus
well,
those.
and that goes back to like what SD was saying. You have your come along grips, your compliance techniques, everything else. You got joint manipulations, pressure points, and honestly, I think batons. Like if you're in a enclosed space, if you
Yeah,
got like a collapsible baton, those work great because it gives you more leverage. And
right.
sometimes there's nothing more irritating than getting that pointing of that baton pointed somewhere that's going to give you that
Mhm.
instantaneous pain. We start talking about switches and triggers, you
Right.
know,
Hmm.
um, or switches and timers, So you start getting that applied pressure, and like you said, I can't do a arm bar, but if I use that baton for additional leverage, either you're going to break your arm, it's going to go out of socket, or you're going to calm down and just kind of walk away with me, you know.
Right.
So, um,
Mhm.
and again, I think that's one of those things where you're training, and again, I got down here the Marine Corps martial arts program. I think that's probably one of the better programs that's out there, as far as combatives in the military that's being taught. You also have the Modern Army Combatives Program, MACP, another good program. Um, but there's been some concerns about that over the years, that those programs have kind of gone the way of, like, everyone's trying to be an MMA fighter, Horace Gracie and BJJ and everything else, and it's kind of lost focus of why those programs was instituted, you know. Um, you know, and I guess with the different agencies, there's really no standard to your grappling hand to hand, or you know just training like that.
Right. I'm sorry.
Now, I mean, like what was your training? What was your guys' training when you was on the job and everything else, Carbon Q? Like, was it 2 hours of your initial class and a research every so often? And I understand it's different for like your regular guards, or guys that work those special teams, and guys that or people that do that stuff and have to come into that stuff and everything else.
Yeah. Well, you get your academy training and then you get hands-on experience when you get into the jail. You do go back every year to recertify, but it's not as intense as it would have been like when you went through the academy. Once you get into the jail setting, each jail is set up different. Depending on where you work, you have dorm por- what do you- dorm pods. Sometimes you have the cells. It all depends on where you work. Work at admin seg, punitive seg, and Maui, mental health seg. It's a stairs. So you have to learn to manipulate all those things, which they don't teach you in the academy. It's just a straight hands-on. You line up your team, you give your directions, you enter in, each person has their job to do, and you kind of just do that drill over and over and over. But when you actually get into the actual cell extraction, is so much more to it, where giving directions from your supervisor, giving directions, and then structuring your team, where it's great to have 6 big guys. You may want to add 1 or 2 strong wiry individuals, because getting those cuffs on and getting those leg irons, you're underneath those big guys, and then being able to get yourself out so they can pick the individual up and escort them out would be more smarter than having 6 or 5 big solid dudes come in, and it's like no room in the cell to move. Everybody's just stuck. But yeah, I mean, that's about the training that I got. It might have been more now. This was a while ago. So.
Yeah. So again, like we talked about last week. Hey, I'm sorry, everyone. Ray Official has joined us, and and that.
Hey, how's it going?
So like we said last week, it's really about like the spaces you're in, right? Because like you call it a hot box. I'm sorry, a hot bus.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm going to do on a hot bus is going to be different than what I do in a rec yard or in an open room or in a cell, and that also is going to dictate what type of I'm going to say weapons, whether they're chemical agents, auditory flashbangs with stingers in them. That's going to determine, what types of stuff you can do. Because I would imagine in a cell, especially like in a solitary cell and everything else, a flashbang is going to ring your ears. You're going to be like, yo, I quit. That concussion is going to be like, yo, we're done.
Well, our ESU, which is emergency service units, those are the big dudes. And females, but they more so have all the extra toys that you play with, but you only pull them out when it's like a real major disturbance. And they have all of those things.
So, SD, what about you? Like, what's your you worked correctional facility? You also worked on the road, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did 2 years in the state corrections, state DOC. And the program, it was pretty much the same as the academy, police academy. It wasn't as extensive as it was at the academy. Not the information that you needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you kind of broke up. Now, it's still interesting to see, like we had talked about, just like the differences between the military, and they're kind of somewhat tracking everything else. And now, you got 2 different law enforcement personnel up here, and just like the disparity in the training, like where now, I guess some of these guys, you see the videos where cops are just like getting it taken to them, and they're having more emphasis on the ground game and grappling, one, protecting that weapon and getting that physical conditioning and everything else. And I guess it would just be, where you work and how you work.
Now,
I don't have like that in my life.
Now, at the academy, it was for defensive tactics. The defensive tactics course was 2 weeks long, and you test out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the yearly in-service, which it was a concentration probably on not all the skills, but how to employ intermediate weapons, steel, wrist locks, all that type of stuff. Not anything like 2 weeks long, like at the academy. And then we implemented ground defense. It had a mix of some jiu-jitsu in it, but it wasn't anything where, what am I looking for? Everything was made simple. Nothing was too complicated, right? If you find yourself on the ground and you get in a ground defense position, you cover your vital areas, this, that, and the other. Give 3 strikes with your feet, this, that, and the other. How to move on your back,
Right.
Follow that person around, and if you're mounted, now that's a whole different situation. How to get out of the mount, keeping in mind you have your weapon. So at that time we had some really what was also what were those holsters? 695s, I do believe. So they were easy to break the gun out of. So now I got to worry about that, right? So now I'm getting popped in the head a couple of 2 or 3 times, and I'm trying to maintain control of my firearm as well. And then I'm trying to get this person off. So that's a week long. And after that week, you have a greater appreciation of how not to get on your back
Like, yeah.
or how not to be on the ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was one of
Hey,
those
Joe.
things. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna jump in. So, um, the thing is, each say when you're working for Department of Corrections, prison, or whatever, uh, each location or state are gonna have different different forms of training. Now when I joined worked for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. This was after I got the military in '96. Okay, so there was no, you went through a training course, which was, the fundamentals and all that stuff, um, just all book work, you know. Anything else was on you as far as, if it was hand-to-hand combat or anything like that, or jujitsu or anything like that. That was on you to learn. You didn't learn that, in the prison system. It was just pretty much you go up in there and you just, guard them. That's it. You know, for us, we didn't carry any weapons. Our only weapon was a pen and, a pad. That was pretty much it. Now if you worked in one of the pickets or the towers, then, you had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. Now, say if a disturbance broke off or something like that, then if you're working the uh, one of the pods, so if you're a pod officer, then you had access to the CS gas, and that was pretty much it. So each one is going to be different because I know I heard Carbon Q saying something about the batons and stuff. We didn't have batons. That's one thing. Now, at least the prisons I worked at didn't have batons, and that's even when I started working with the police department. I started in the jail, and the same thing with the jail. We didn't carry batons. You had no type of so-called weapon on you. So yeah, each place will be different, and when it came down to say cell extractions, it wasn't just pulling some officers and saying, hey, we're going to do a cell extraction. You actually had a team. That's what you trained for, to do cell extractions and stuff, or disturbance. And the same thing, say like if there was a disturbance outside, we had, officers whose job it was, to, get the tear gas gun or whatever, and utilize that. Not everybody, had access to it. And we couldn't use those anyway, unless, the lieutenant or sergeant or lieutenant said, hey, well, get the gas or whatever, so, but I just wanted to, throw that in there real quick.
Yeah. No, so I just pulled up some stuff from DOJ, Department of Justice or anything else, and there's a video that was published back in '93 where they talked about some of the hand-to-hand combat or close quarters combat and what officers go through and some of the things, right? And like you guys was talking about, right, just like right there, several control techniques where you're not going to cause additional injury to the suspect and stuff like that, and then just I don't know. I can't see how you guys do it. I couldn't do it, but yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much based off of you and your interaction. If you went up in there and you were trying to be a hard ass or whatever, yeah, if something broke off, you might get your ass whipped. You
Hey,
might become a
watch
statistic.
your mouth, granddad. Watch your mouth.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say nothing too bad. Yeah, I mean, But yeah, you might get a whipping, a beat down.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
that's one of
but
those things. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
nah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm reading other lessons pertaining to wrist holds, locks, wrist, countermeasure, hip butts, points, pressure points.
And I think it got cut off too many words. And I think
You're good.
to ST Marine, I think that's like some of those things was kind of hitting at. It's like some of the training they're not really teaching you to be this super duper uh Jack Slade or RoboCop or whatever. Is just
Mhm.
basic street level survival. If you're down on the ground getting stomped out, do everything you got to do to protect your firearm and get to your feet.
Yeah, at that point in time, and we tell I mean, I used to say it all the time. You get to that point, don't think about policy, don't think about training, just do,
Yeah,
right?
get to your feet.
Yeah, just do. Don't matter how you get there, just do, and then go from there. But like I'm looking at wrist locks and countermeasures, things of that nature. Wrist locks are used for verbal non-compliant and or passive aggressive, right? And it can go to defensive resistors, this, that, and the other. But again, it's identifying, recognizing, and understanding what you have at that point in time, what space you're in at that point in time, what applies at that point in time.
Yeah.
So, like carbon, I'm quite sure if for us, and they've gone away from it,
Mhm.
most academies have PPCT, if anybody's familiar with that, which was involving pressure point control techniques, using intermediate weapons, things of that nature. And now, as we move into or have moved into a different way of law enforcement and policing, and not only that, hey, shout out to my like Gen Zers and all those people, yada 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 yada, right? We found that most people enter into law enforcement, and again, no offense to them, have never been in any type of physical confrontation whatsoever.
Facts.
90% of candidates have never been in any type of physical confrontation whatsoever, right?
Yep.
So now we have to give them those tools, hopefully, and something sticks where they can identify where they are in this time and space, and if it applies, if it doesn't apply. And I think Java, you mentioned the force continuum, right?
Yes.
I've had students, when we run through these scenarios, they are actually going through their head trying to figure out where we are in the force continuum. And I'm like, look, dude, like, it's not like an elevator. I mean, you can take that elevator all the way up and stop at any point. But just because I'm being verbally non-compliant and or passive resistor, that does not mean once we get to that floor, you can't go up a level. You're, in other words, you don't have to stay on that floor. You can go up a level as long as you can articulate and justify the reason why, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's like another thing for law enforcement, more so for civilians. And well, I'm not going to touch on civilians yet, but for the military, every time you do something, you have to write a report. So you have to be cognizant of compliance holds. You have to be cognizant of whether you're applying a blood choke or air choke and how long you apply it. Right? I don't even know if you guys can do chokes anymore. To be honest
No,
with
no.
so
Well,
you know
unless it's deadly force
Deadly
being
yeah
force,
yeah
unless it's deadly force.
yeah unless you're fighting over that gun and you're getting stomped out, then all bets are off. And again, it's like one of those things is you have to manage. SD, you talked about that space. I, I have to manage that space to where I'm being personable, but I'm not within that striking range of knife, a staff weapon, a stick, baton, anything like that. So, and then I have to manage it to where I'm in close enough to where you can't using those weapons. And I guess it gets really, really tricky for you guys. And I would say Carmen just going into a pod or a cell and everything else, you're going to that individual's house and yeah, shanks,
Yeah. Usually,
yeah.
so when you're doing that, it's situational awareness. It's also communication with your other partners to let them know, listen, eyes on me. I'm about to go into the cell. You try to do everything you can outside of the cell before ever entering into the cell. And then again, it all depends on your rapport and how they know you move inside there. I had a very thorough team of officers that worked with me. So a lot of that did carry me through a lot of things because they knew you touch her, it's a squad coming for you. And the people that I had on there, they knew when it came to business, it was business, but they weren't a-holes. They were officers that they would talk to you. Even myself as a supervisor, you have to learn how to talk to people. You have to understand that they're in a position where sometimes they don't understand things, they don't get it, the pressures that they have in a housing area. And all of that has to come into play when you're entering into a situation. You kind of got to know the person's pedigree, if they're highly assaulted, if their mental health issues there. Because even if you stand there and you give them the opportunity to express something, it still doesn't register. They just want to fight. You'll walk in and they'll tell you, "Hey, gear up. It's going to be one of those days." And I'm going to use the word again. It's so unpredictable. You have to be flexible with everything that you do. When you walk in there, it could be a very quiet day or it could be the bells are ringing all day long.
Bells are ringing, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, again, just like to juxtapose your military from your law enforcement is, again, I got like 3 cases pulled up from the military programs where they kind of retailored it in the history of the Army MACP program that really started with Second Ranger Battalion. Getting their BJJ on with Forrest Gracie and then going to regiment and everything else, and then training the boys. But it's so vast. It's like 180 out because it's like for them when they go CQC, they go hands on. It's a done deal. You know, it's just a done deal. Then like in the law enforcement, you guys are actually trying to help people. If that makes any sense. Versus 180 out where these guys go hands on. It's over with. They're trying to end it. Um,
Yeah, that's true combatant at that point in
yeah,
time.
yeah. With very few exceptions, once you start putting flex cuffs and hoods on people, that's different. But that's like something different. 2009, there's a guy. Actually, the Battles of Fallujahs. They said like some of their engagements, man, they were going straight hand to hand. Clearing out the second Battle of Fallujah and everything else. And then Master Sergeant Pryor, he was the one I was talking about last week, where he deleted an individual for 2x4 because both his weapons jammed. And yeah, so it's just funny. I don't know if this is a good time. You guys want to talk about some of the civilian stuff, some of the civilian aspects, and how that's completely different. 180 out.
Well, you have a lot of unrest going around all around the world. It's you should prepare for CQB or CQC in anything that you do, like from schools to the grocery stores, government buildings. There's a lot of things where people are grouping up and they're, you know, protesting, rioting, whatever you want to call it. You should be prepared as a civilian that you might encounter that on your way home to go pick up your kids. Your kids might encounter that. You may want to take or give them a heads up of how to navigate through that, how to dip off or have a spot where you stay here, something goes on, and you call me, I'll come get you. Uh, it's a weird world we're living in right now where you didn't have to worry about those things so much as a civilian. You do, to me, at this point in time, you should be ready for just about anything.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. Definitely agree.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything on that carbon headed.
Yeah. Well, and again, like you said, with if you look back, like all the riots and everything else, you really can't be 100% for everything. So like, what's your baseline of training you're gonna get into? Just walk away if you can, but sometimes you make that wrong left hand turn down a one way street, and you smack dab in a riot. So and again, I guess a lot of the tools that the civilians have, they may or may not be afforded. That's afforded to the military or afforded to law enforcement. Not too many civilians roll in 5-man teams with a videographer to, document the cell extraction or have that training and doing that. And so, at that point, it's just a melee, or you're throwing chairs, sticks, stones, bottles, whatever you got.
I think with YouTube, there's so many things that the civilian population can learn, and they are learning it. When you look at the incident where I forgot which one it was at the college, and you had the guys with the lanterns. I think it was the protesters there. They came out with shields, homemade shields. They had their homemade protection for tear gas and all those
Yeah.
types of things. So they are watching and they are paying attention. So they're not as deaf, dumb, or blind to certain protocols or how to do certain things. They're actually implementing those things and utilizing it to their benefit. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying, there's a lot of people out there. You have a lot of people who have family members who may schooled them on certain things, and now
Yeah.
the person becomes a dangerous person or a skilled person. I won't say dangerous. I'll just say a skilled person in certain things. You have a whole group of people who are now paying attention and preparing for those things so that when it does hit and it does get crazy, they can sit in their house and let that craziness rock out for the next 3 days before they even step out their house.
Yeah.
That's why it's
Yeah.
so prepare. So
And then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead, finish up.
I'm just saying it's good to prepare and have stuff in your home so when it does hit, you could wait out those first 3 days, that first week, and let all the crazy run, and you just remain safe in your house. Your only object at that point is to maintain your dwelling, maintain the people in there, and make sure that it remains safe.
Yeah.
That's all I have about that.
Yeah. And even with that, what Carmen was saying about the protesters, majority of the time the protesters are preparing to protest.
Right.
So it's not like they're just going out there and just a random group of people just banding together and just decide, hey, we're going to make some shields. Nah, they've already gotten together and say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do, and we need to make shields, we need to be prepared for this, have some type of face covering in case they shoot tear gas. They're prepared for it. Now the majority of those people that are out there with them are probably not prepared for it, but the main ones who are initiating the protests, they're ready for it.
Yep.
And like you said, they're looking at different things, looking at YouTube and learning a whole lot of things from YouTube. And then once this stuff kick off, like, okay, yeah, we got what we need.
Yeah.
It's just everybody else is not prepared. And that's the main thing with anything. Being prepared. Being prepared. And 9 times out of 10, most civilians are not prepared for anything.
Nope.
Well, and Ray, I think you touched on a very interesting point because, like I always say, I'm just going to the gas station to get some gas, and for, whatever reason, whether someone's trying to mug me or do whatever, now I have to go hands on. So, I have to have some type of technique, whether it's a ground game, whether it's verbal judo, whether I can jump my big butt in my car and drive away. So, but all of those things failed, and now I have to get into that hand to hand combat, that mutual combat, that that fight, that fist fight. And like SD said, very few people that's these whatever generation it is has ever gotten into a fist fight, and everyone has a plan until they get punched in the nose, right?
Yeah.
And that plan just goes, your eyes right here start to well up with water, and things get blurry. Then you start, I start rethinking like every decision I ever made in my life that got me to this point. And I was like, yo, this is where I went wrong. This is where I went wrong. Now I got to fight, and it's just one of those things. Is just like as a civilian, some of the things I got to think about because again, there's no rules to close quarters combat. There's no rules to a fight. There's rules for the military and for law enforcement. But as a civilian, you can get sucker punched, you can get hit with a bottle. It can be multiple assailants against one. It could be a melee where we just see people swinging, we just start swinging. We don't even know who we're fighting against. The only thing we know is we're getting cheap licks in. How many times we've seen videos where you see someone that's not really involved, they're kind of on the peripherals, they'll kind of run in and kick someone and stomp them out, then jump back in or throw a punch. So this is like all that stuff we got to think about. And again, maintaining that distance. SD Marine said it. I have to maintain that distance. Especially like riots and protests. A lot of times they got signs and everything else. Well, that becomes another weapon that increases the range that they got. So I want to be out of range or too close to them for them to use their weapons, right? So I want to be beyond arm's length, or I want to be somewhere where they can't get an effective punch on me. Like you said, Carmen, kind of hard to swing a baton in a small cell.
Right.
So,
You also have to understand your mentality and understand violence. If
Yeah.
you've ever been in a violent situation, then you probably are not going to understand the violence until you get punched in the face. And either you're going to go through fight or flight, right? Herd mentality, you're going to have a lot of people with that. You have to learn to separate yourself and observe everything that's going around. If you have an opportunity to get out of that situation, take that opportunity. Now, if you have to engage with the understanding that you might have to seriously hurt somebody or they're going to seriously hurt you, and you decide which one it is, them or you, and go through whatever tactics or whatever choice you make to do. Follow through with that. Don't second guess yourself is my advice. Your main objective is to get home or
Yeah.
get to your destination or get out of there so you can breathe for a minute and gather yourself together. But it's split second sometimes. And sometimes you can it could be a whole bunch going on and you would just kind of be in the cut just watching, like looking, observing, and just being like, right, they're going this way, I'm going that way.
Yeah.
And
And then on
sometimes
top,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go finish up. Go.
Like sometimes I'm gonna say the best option is always to extract yourself out of that when you know you have no wins. You could take on a few people if you're good with your hands or you have that, tool or firearm or equipment to handle your business. But you're not gonna take on, if it's one of you and it's a mob of people and you don't know who's who. You don't know who you're fighting or who's friend or foe. So best option is just get out of there.
Yeah.
Do something.
And you gotta know how to control yourself too. I mean, just like Carbon said, if you get punched in the face, majority of the times, some people will lose it. You got to know how not to lose it in, law enforcement or corrections or whatever. You got to know how not to lose it because you don't want to sit there and because somebody hit you in your face, the next thing you know, you're smashing their head against the concrete or something like that or whatever because you've lost it. You got to take that hit and continue to do, your job and to get that person in without, using deadly force. Now it's different if they have a weapon, on them or something like that. It's completely different. But if it's just hand to hands, you gotta, like I said, know how to take whatever's getting thrown at you and not lose it. So
Yeah. And it's a scary thing to be in. Some people could talk about it calmly because it becomes a norm. I'm going to air quote that. It becomes a norm for you. For me, violence was just a norm. Every day, all day is what I saw. Violent situations, I'm extremely calm, which kind of bothers me a little bit. Sometimes they're like, yo, how did you stay so calm? Because I'm around that all day long. And
sociopath.
right.
no, it's expected.
Right. It saved my life plenty of times, but at the end of the day, not just people who are in law enforcement or military. There's also a lot of dangerous people out there that we don't know of. Mental health is a big thing. You have a lot of people who have amazing strength, like unbelievable strength, because they're on certain medications. They don't feel pain. They don't feel anything. It doesn't matter what you do to them. They're still coming at you, and you're like, well, damn, what am I going to do now? Yeah, there's so many different rabbit holes with use of force or just engaging with somebody else. There's so many unknowns and so many variables that you have to run them through your head. It has to click real quick, and you got to change tactics or change how you move or just get the hell out of there. I don't know. It's a lot to it, and I think until you've been in it, it's something I think everybody should take a class where they get hit so they can understand what that is, or I've been stabbed before. That is not a nice feeling. It is definitely very painful. And your adrenaline is another thing that you have to learn to deal with. It'll make you feel like you do anything. And so there's the world is crazy.
Yeah, getting stabbed is definitely like not on my list of things to do.
That's like
That's a lot of stress.
God damn. Yeah. Don't go, Carbon.
I mean, come on, look, she's it. That sucker hurt.
Yeah.
I've never had that.
Yeah. Hey, start calling her Jules. You're like, hey, I hate to disappoint you. This ain't the first time I had a gun pointed at me.
I think
something too.
Yeah, you all have touched on it, Ray, Carbon, especially Jovi, CQC, right? And I think it has been brought up in several lives that I've watched. One for me is mindset, right? I have to understand every day I leave this house, something is going to happen. When I make it back home, I'm good. That's just been my whole way, my whole dynamic. And I guess it's because of LE. Now, the civilian can have the same mindset. I think, and Carbon just said it, right? Somebody, if you hadn't been hit in the face before, go to a class and get hit in the face. In fact, if you know Carbon, just walk up to Carbon and say, hey, here's $20 and hit me in the face.
Charlie Murphy!
But you do have to understand that pain is there, and you may not even feel it. It goes away, right?
Adrenaline,
yeah. My son, I'll say that with them. When they were little, they got into a fight, little skirmish with some kids, whatever. My son came in, he was crying. I was like, hey, man, go back outside, handle it. If you don't handle it, I'm going to handle you. He went back outside, handled his business, came back in. And I was like, so what happened? He was like, I think I got hit 2 or 3 times. I said, did you feel it? He was like, no. I said, that's the way it is, man. Don't be scared to get hit. Right? It's when you get caught off guard. Like Joe said, is you have a plan until you get punched in the nose.
Yeah.
For me, I understand every day that person is coming up to me, walking up to me to punch me dead square in the nose. At that point in time, where do I go from there?
Right. Matching energy is it all depends if you can control it. Because matching it, if you're dealing with somebody that's a little bugged out and you match that energy, neither one of you are in control. You're just going for broke, right?
It may, like you said, it may be one of those, and you said mental health is a big thing. It may be one of those things. I'm stepping back, taking a look at it for a brief minute.
Mm-hmm.
Do I really want that smoke, or do I want to walk away?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. I think. I'm
And
sorry.
that punch. Oh, no, I was gonna say, in that punch, one of the things, the punch hurts more when it's unexpected.
Oh hell
You
yeah.
know, that's when it hurts more. Now, like I say, if you're, in a situation and you're fighting that adrenaline, yeah, you get hit a couple of times. You're not really feeling that until afterwards.
Yeah.
But that sucker punch or whatever, that you're gonna feel it. I mean, that might bring you down to the ground. But when you're just, in that situation and that adrenaline is running through you, yeah, you're going to keep on doing what you're doing. Now, you'll feel it the next day or later on that day,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And
Yeah.
with integrity, I just read your comment. I understand that. And when I sent my sons out, they were like 4 or 5, maybe 6, something like that. And I agree, times are different now. But my
Yeah.
point being is that he had to take that punch. He had to get that, right? To understand you can fight through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, like you said, now it's different. Now it's a lot of times it's best just to walk away,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they
Yeah,
don't
because I mean, it's not fair fights anymore.
right. I was about to say that they don't even shoot fair ones anymore. It's more of a jumping type situation.
Yeah, gone are the days of shooting a fade and
It's
calling it like, yo, you got me, yeah, those days are long gone. But that brings up something else, Carbon Q, and ST Marine. That's about, once you're at the point of no return where you have to fight, like now as a civilian, I have to keep in mind I kind of have to prepare myself both mentally and physically to be in a fight, because I might be in a fight for 3 seconds. I might be in a fight for, you know, however long it takes. I might be fighting one person. I might be fighting two people, So that's like, again, that physical conditioning and everything else, that mental mindset. And I'm not saying go out and, you know, become just solely focused on fighting, but you have to have a balance. But like Integrity said, the world we live in is vastly different than from when we grew up. What's up, Skilly?
Hey, Skilly. Hey, Armando.
Hey.
Hey, Skilly. So what's your take on? We define CQC as just fighting with your hands, feet, fists, whatever. Not using any firearms. So what's your take on that as a civilian? How do you approach, or what do you think about CQC or hand-to-hand combat, mutual combat? Throwing them hands, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's more if you beat up and you have a altercation. There's more guns gonna be involved more than what it used to when I grew up. So I don't plan to do no hand-to-hand combat with nobody out here because I know it's either I'm gonna get shot or somebody gonna go get a gun and then I'm gonna get shot. So I'm not interested in it. But when I took the ability test for the sheriff department last weekend, we had to go on our belly, come stand straight up, and then fall back on our back, like if we were imitating if we was fighting in jail. And I thought that was very interesting, and one of the courses that I had to take in the physical test. So
I think you asked a question before regarding what should you do if you're going to go into the correctional field.
Yeah, that's what I plan to do. I got one more step, well, 2 more steps, and then I'll be on my way.
If I was you, I would take jiu-jitsu up. I would do a lot of cardio. There's a lot of running involved, responding. They also have classes where you can do cell extractions to teach you how to do it the correct way. More efficient way, I'll say, because every facility does it different. Every area does it different, or correctional facility may have different rules, but you'll get a good understanding of how to do it. And just mentally prepare yourself for a lot of mental abuse, verbal abuse. You're going to get a lot of verbal abuse. People are going to test you. Learn to have that stone face. Learn to, shake it off. Learn to separate the job from home. That's a hard thing. When you get into use of forces, when you see all that violence, you really don't get any type of, I want to say, a space to explore that or get rid of it. So you kind of hold it with you. I don't know about everybody else. We didn't have it there. It's kind of, you can get into like 5 uses of force in one day and you just move on to the next day and it's the same thing and it's the same thing and the same thing. They don't teach you how to de-escalate that within yourself, how to let that go. So you can end up being a very angry and violent person. Have a good
Yeah,
system. I'm sorry, somebody else can go ahead.
yeah, and everything Carbon Q just said. You will more than likely. I mean, I'm not gonna say there's a chance. You will more than likely bring your work home with you. And when I say that, I'm not talking about like uh, um, paperwork or nothing like that. Whatever went on at that jail that you had to deal with, it's coming back home with you, and you're gonna have to learn how to leave it there. Which is easier said than done. I mean that was me. I would go to work or whatever and have to deal with all this craziness, and I was real short and snappy when I got home. Because of it. So you're gonna you got to be prepared for all that stuff. There's a reason why they say, law enforcement and corrections, have the highest divorce rate.
Yep.
There's a reason for all of that, man. So yeah, just be prepared for it and learn how to leave it, leave work at work.
Yeah. Sit in your car for about an hour and just decompress, listen to some music. You're the patience that you have to 50, 100 different people with different personalities every day, sometimes 16 hours a day. But when you get home, your body automatically tends to let its guard down, but you don't have the patience for everybody else at home because you have given everything at work. Learn to do things to allow you to get rid of that. Go to the gym before you get home, burn it off, get home. You have young kids. What Ray just said, watch how you deal with them because sometimes you don't realize that you're doing it, but you talk and you speak differently and you don't realize it because that's your work body. Then you got to remember your home body, your dad body, your CO body is personalities. I'll say not even bodies. You develop personalities because you have to learn how to navigate through those things. You're dealing with hundreds of personalities, not the greatest. Not all of them are great. Not all.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You're
No,
dealing with those personalities, the inmates, and understand that you're dealing with coworker personalities as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a confined space, right? That's all you know. The only thing I can say, and like I said, I worked in a prison. I worked up on max, day in, day out, 12-hour shifts. And you can pretty much, to prepare for it, man. It's strange, and Carbon knows what I'm talking about. Maybe Ray, Joe By, like that day. Once you step on the
I ain't never been
yard,
in no prison. I ain't never been in no jail.
once you step on the yard, once you step on the yard, you know that something don't feel right. And if it's real quiet, that was us. If it was real quiet on Max, it's about to pop off.
Yeah.
It's getting ready to
Yep.
pop off.
Yep.
The air is thick. You walk in, you're like, something's off. What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, something is off. But
Yeah.
only other thing I can say, Skilly, is find a hobby other than, you got hobbies, right?
Mhm.
But find a hobby, and Carbon said it, take time out for you.
Yeah.
You got to find that outlet. You got to have Skilly time, I guess.
And
Right?
and not to go all huggy Philly. And I guess what I don't know. What I'm taking that everyone is saying, you have to find a safe space for yourself to decompress
Yeah.
because you're going to potentially see some things that people were not meant to see and witness and to live. And, no matter what you say, it affects you. All these guys out here be like, oh, I did this, I did that. I sleep like a baby at night. Yeah, you might sleep like a baby that's having nightmares,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, other than that, man, just do yourself, man. Do good. Don't be doing no shakedowns and
More
everything
thing-
else.
One more thing. You're not always going to get the upper hand. There's going to be days when you're going to take the L. You're going to get, excuse my word for, my lack of a better word, but sometimes you're going to get shitted down. You're going to get urine, piss, a cocktail thrown on you. And
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of.
yeah, your options are to fight with that on you or get the hell out, change your clothes, and wait for another day. And you have to sit with that, knowing that somebody threw all of this on you,
Yeah.
and it sticks with you. Like it definitely. You're gonna be a little bugged out. I'm gonna be honest with you, especially if you do your job. You're going to be bugged out. You're gonna look at your blood pressure, make sure you check that because there's a lot of things that is dead ass wrong, and you're gonna be like, damn, decisions that you're gonna have to make. Sometimes are not gonna be the decisions that you want to make, but it has to be made. So just prepare yourself for those things. It's going to change you as a person. Find a hobby, like they said. I
Yep.
think you should find one that allows you to beat stuff up so you can get all of that anger out and then go home.
But I think Carbon touched on it. Like, hey, you go ahead and get that cardio in, brother.
Yeah,
Get that cardio.
won't be running.
Or Skilly, wherever you get posted up to, man, find that little interview room that ain't got no cameras and learn to tune motherfuckers up, man. Always bring some oranges and stock.
There is no spot.
Hold on, wait, Joe.
Hey, hey,
Joe.
cameras
Joe.
turned the other way. It must have been out.
That's unheard of.
So Joe,
Yes, sir.
how come when I said the word ass, you jumped on me, but what did you just say?
Oh,
Huh?
that was in context. All
I
right.
don't care, man. I mean,
Okay, you
you
got me.
jumped
You
on
got
me,
me.
so I'm just trying to,
What's
yeah,
fair is fair. What's equitable is equitable. You got me.
yeah. I
You
mean,
pick
come
you
on,
pick
man.
a channel. You pick a channel subscriber.
I didn't,
I'll send them something.
I didn't even say a bad word, man.
Fair is fair.
That,
Right.
yeah, that word can be
Equitable.
found in the Bible.
Right. Equitable is
Boy,
equitable. You pick a channel subscriber, and I'll send them something from my garage.
I pick
all right.
myself, so send
They
me something from your garage.
talking
All
about
right.
send me some.
No, Skelly, you're not getting nothing. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, just mentally prepare yourself, man. I mean, it's gonna be a whole different world, And then, like I said, you're gonna be working in the jail. The jail is completely different from the prison, you know,
Yeah.
completely different because you're getting people, who are fresh off the street and they're riled up, man. They're riled up, When they get to prison, depending on what type of prison it is, I worked the intake unit, and the intake unit, it was crazy. I mean, the intake unit was worse than the
Yes. Yeah.
min max. Yeah,
Yeah.
I worked the max, I worked the min max, and the intake was even worse. Because we're getting guys who are coming straight from the county jail, and what they're going to do, they're going to try you. They're going to try you, and so when you're working in the jail, they will try you. And they're going to say a whole lot of craziness, like, hey, don't let me see you on the street and stuff like that. And I'm going to come after your family. You just got to know how to, brush that off or whatever. Just brush it off.
And don't be the duck. They're gonna ask you to bring stuff in. Don't do it.
No,
Don't.
sir.
The minute you say yeah, you're done. You're finished. It's over.
That's it.
Ah, got him.
Yeah, they got you. You're gonna be the jailhouse smuggler B word. So, and they're always gonna be like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell on you." So, don't be the duck. And why do you? Let me ask you a question. Why do you want to go to corrections?
Well, I always wanted to be in law enforcement since I was a kid, and I tried to go for police just to be on the streets. But anything. I just wanted to do anything with law enforcement, so it's always been in my mind. So second time around, I tried in 2017, didn't make it. Both departments, and this year they accepted it. I did most of the application process. So as long as it was law enforcement, jail, or either on the streets, that's something I always wanted to do. So.
I don't know, Skilly. I'm gonna be honest with you. If I had a choice, I would never step foot in corrections. But I'm thankful for a lot of things and a lot of people that I've met there. However, it's a lot, Skilly. You have a beautiful family, so just be careful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know, Skilly, man. You got like a beautiful soul, man. You need to be like a teacher or something, man. I like.
Nah, because I done put my hands on my godson. I've been to kick somebody.
Skilly,
So
better
here's
that gym.
Never mind, man. Skilly gonna be like, my name is correctional officer. Try Jesus, don't try me.
Skilly light, man.
so
Gotta get some weight, get your weight up, man.
yeah, you and another thing, and this is again, be it corrections, detention, or whatever the case may be. Um, Keep your personal life your personal life. Don't talk about that stuff to coworkers and or around inmates. I'm telling you right
Yeah.
now.
Gotcha.
Yep. Definitely don't do that.
Don't
Nope.
don't get a workhouse wife. You have a wife at home, keep that at home. Don't do it. I don't know if everybody else knows what I'm talking about, but at the end of the
Oh
day,
yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that goes on there, and a lot of your home is not going to understand the stress that you're going through and the environment, because it's like stepping into a different world. They have no idea what's going on inside there. They don't know why you behave the way how you don't want, how you want your space. Like, you like people, but you need your space. And it's like, oh, you don't want to be with me? No, that's not it. I just need a minute to myself, because when you're there, you don't have a minute to yourself at all. So your behavior is going to change, and you need to have a really good communication and let her know what you're going through, and consider all of those things before you make this a career, because you might end up losing a lot of really great things in your life for a career that is unrewarding in so many aspects. But lucrative, yes. I don't know. It's decisions you have to make, but there's a lot of things that go in there that you know, you're gonna carry it with you. You're always gonna, there's things you're gonna see, Skilly, that's gonna fuck you up. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to cuss, but that's what it does. You're gonna see people ripped open in front of you. Their blood is gonna be on your shirt, on your face. You're trying to cover it for them. You're rushing them to the clinic. You're gonna see a lot of things. It's a wild place to be in. Prepare yourself for it.
Yep. And not trying to discourage you, but yeah, prepare for it.
Yeah.
Prepare for it. I mean, it's uh now I don't know what they pay there, but in some places, yeah, it's you get paid pretty well, but you got to look at what you're doing also, you know. In some places, yeah, they don't pay you well, but it's all that they have. So yeah, just prepare yourself for it, man. And like you said, just find a hobby, find a hobby, something that will take your mind off of work, and then your best thing is, like the start looking now before you even start. Just try and find you something that you can do, or so even if you do so now, and I'm not talking, you you know, just build more models and stuff, and things like that. But yeah, just get your mind right, because I'm telling you, it will change you, and it doesn't change you for the best, it change you for the worse.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if anybody else got anything, probably give part to end. Chat, does chat have anything? Any questions? Well, SD Marine, thank you for coming on. Carbon Q, thank you. Armel, good to see you again. Skilly, thank you. Ray, thank you. I guess that's it. If you guys don't mind, we'll end the live and hang out backstage. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining us. Have a good one.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Hey, SD Marine, you like to say anything before we get out of here?
No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here, but I extend that. Thank you for having me on.
Right. Skilly, you want to say anything to the chat?
No, man, y'all be safe and take care of one another.
All right, Armel.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, Ray.
Yeah, same thing Armel said. Thanks for tuning in. You know, it's a lot for us to learn, and you know, just keep on learning. That's all I can say.
And again, I just like to, say that there's no right answer, no wrong answer as to what the definitions is. It means different things to different people. There's just certain things that work, certain things that don't work, and we'll save the last for the lady. Carbon Q, you're muted. Carbon.
My
You're
bad.
muted.
My dog was going off. Just stay ready, prepare for whatever's to come. You don't have to be like a super duper prepper, but get some extra foods. Get your house in order. There's a lot going on. Skilly was not to deter you. I want you to understand what you're walking into, because sometimes you don't realize until you're way invested and you've lost a lot that you're like, damn, why did I do this? So, just prepare yourself, and you have a lot of people you can reach out to should it get crazy that will understand what you're going through and help you out the best we can.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Yep, you got my